Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today we are going to be talking about storytelling, and eLearning Brothers has brought together a few partners, so eLearning Brothers, the game agency, and Powtoon to cover this topic. Let me introduce myself. My name is Stephen Baer. I'm the Chief Creative Officer over at the game agency, a division of eLearning Brothers. And with me are two much better looking and much smarter people. We'll start with Rich, and why don't you introduce yourself and then Nick, and then we'll move on to the agenda.
Nobody can beat Nick's hair, though, man. That's just a great look. Hey, everybody. I'm Rich Vass. Been with the eLearning Brothers about 11 years. Currently working as the Vice President of Learning Solutions, and very passionate about this topic. So great to be here today.
Great. Hey, everybody. Nick Liebman here, head creator for video and learning at Powtoon. If you don't know Powtoon, we're a creation platform to create short videos, presentations, and other visual media to use for internal communications, training, marketing, and just about anything else you can think of. I've been with the company for a little over 5 years, and I've done everything from writing copy in the product to training thousands and thousands and thousands of people to use our platform and make videos to make a difference in their work. So I'm really, really excited to be working with Rich and Stephen and everybody who's joining today to see how we put these pieces together.
Well, I'm super excited about this agenda because I was introduced to Powtoon maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, and I've found that it's consistently been a really nice complement to the work that we're doing in the gaming space. So with that said, this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the importance of storytelling in training. Beyond that, we're going to talk about the elements of interactive narratives. So, it's not just why it's important, but how do you build it properly? We're going to talk about how to create compelling videos, and we're going to get really into the weeds a little bit with Powtoon. And then we're going to talk about combining videos and games. This should be a really fun topic, and certainly please ask questions along the way. Happy to jump in and answer them. So why video, and where's it relevant? I almost, there's so many topics that you can talk about that it's relevant for, but I like to step back and talk about soft skills because I think that is the most easy one to understand. And I love this stat in particular. Google says that 7 out of 8 of the most important hiring skills that they focus on are soft skills. And quite honestly, soft skills can be trained and they can be done, I think, most effectively through relevant, relatable scenarios. And what better tool to do that with than video? Soft skills and stories overall, I think, are intertwined. At the end of the day, stories play a really nice role in driving engagement, building emotions, making sure that the content's a lot more memorable, relatable, and that's through a bunch of different things. Thinking about the scenarios where things are going to take place, the characters, the challenges, different ways that people want to either be excited or motivated. Ultimately, stories play a great role in driving all those things. And more than anything, stories really take someone from being a relatively unengaged learner to much more active, and they're going to remember the content as a result. When I think about stories, I think about lots of different forms of media that I've at least been influenced by. Back to my childhood when I really engaged with, choose your own adventure books, thinking about the things that I watch today with my kids on TV. Netflix has all these great choose your own adventure television. And then, of course, active in the gaming space and passionate about gaming, thinking about choose your own adventure games. All the different simulation games that are out there, popular games that are out there, where people are really being asked to determine what the outcome of the game is going to be based on the decisions they make throughout the game. Well, we can take these same concepts and apply them into training. So I'm going to start with this video. And Rich, you want to give any background on the video before I play it?
Yeah, if I may. So this is something we've shared before in different presentations. Really all over, this concept of the hero's journey. Now, we couldn't have a storytelling webinar without introducing or at least reminding us all of the hero's journey. And some of you may not be aware of it, but those who are would recognize it as a concept popularized by Joseph Campbell in the 70s. He was a disciple of Carl Jung, who is a behaviorist psychologist, So we're gonna, in the next slide, we'll get into some of the details of what does that mean? You know, the hero's journey, there's 12 elements to it. And every one of those elements are part of an effective story. And so as Nick and Stephen and I prepared for today, I wanted to make sure that we were remembering in our various jobs, whether we're instructional designers or learning architects or managers or whatnot, we can take some time to remember the effective elements that can go into our narrative for an effective story. What we have here is Rocky in a minute. If you know Rocky IV, you'll recognize this story, but Stephen, why don't you go ahead and play it? And then the next slide will get into
I've seen this Drago fight.
Drago is a super athlete.
I know I can beat him. Stand in my corner. Just this one last time.
Fighting for the whole country.
Apollo is down.
I cannot be defeated.
Somebody get a doctor in here!
Soon.
I let it happen. I gotta take everything he's got. This is gonna be a time when you're gonna have to do things that other people don't think are right, but they're gonna be right for you. You gotta do what you gotta do.
All your strength, all your power, all your love, everything you've got.
Do it.
Be more man than him.
I must break you.
Rocky is in serious trouble.
Get up, you son of a bitch!
You might have to stop this one before somebody gets killed.
Yay!
I've-
Clap, clap. Thanks to Stephen for doing some great mixing on that. A lot of us may remember that story. I think I was 10, 12 or 13. I don't remember, back in the 70s when I first saw that show. And it was very inspiring. The story was great. And as you can see, if we were to dissect all of the elements, well, we don't have time to do that. But if we could dissect all the elements of that story, we would see that there are all 12 of these elements in there. We're in the ordinary world. There's a call to adventure, Drago. The Russians, you know, this was all during the Cold War, right? But they challenged the Americans. Rocky's the champion, but Apollo Creed wants to come out of retirement. There's a refusal of the call initially because Rocky doesn't want to do it, but Apollo Creed steps up. The mentors, right? These are the coaches and the staff that supports Rocky all along the way. We then cross the threshold into this special world. He's going to take the challenge. And in this case, literally, he moves from Philadelphia, wherever he's living, over to Russia. And then there's tests, allies, enemies, right? His wife even, you can't win. And then the elements in Russia are his enemies. He approaches the ordeal. He's at the top of the mountain. Yay! He seizes the sword figuratively by winning, then takes that road back, and he learns something. And I love the clip about, when he's there with his son, about, helping him realize sometimes you have to try to grab something greater than you. Anyway, it's a great story. But when you dissect it, all of these elements are in there. And if you look at Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or you name it, just pick your favorite story. These elements are likely going to be part of the whole experience. We are not saying that when you're sitting down to write your online training, or you're considering using some sort of scenario to illustrate your learning objectives, that you have to think about all 12 of these. But the challenge I make to everyone is try to use some of them. If it's something that moves us from the ordinary world to a special world. There's some sort of test, and Stephen has been published many times in, Forbes magazine or whatnot, talking about the elements of games. So one thing I've learned from Stephen and the game agency is there has to be an element of loss. There has to be a way to lose. So if we're talking about stories and games, then that takes on a whole different vibe. Today, we're talking about just storytelling, but using those in a gaming environment can become very powerful. Anyway, I could go on and on and on, but I'll jump in as we talk today regarding these elements of stories to remind us of these various elements and how video can be so powerful to help illustrate, each one of these steps. Back to you, Stephen.
I happen to love this example. And by the way, not to go on a tangent here, but as you just retold that story in this slide, you reminded me of Olaf from Frozen, retelling the story of the everything that happened with the sisters and whatnot.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you did it perfectly. So, but I think that the point is that storytelling really can be magical. And I think that it's important, to Richard's point, maybe you don't hit all 12 points, but you can design a great story, you can design a great narrative, you can apply it in video, and we're going to get to that momentarily. One of the things that I always think about before even building out that narrative is, what is the performance objective I'm trying to accomplish? Do I want people to understand stuff, remember stuff, apply stuff, analyze stuff, evaluate stuff, create stuff? What do I want ultimately to happen? And I think that will start to drive what that story is. The next thing I look at is really 6 considerations for video design. So the first one is the story arc overall. As we think about the learner, what do we want? How do we want the learner to engage with that story, with that content? We're gonna build a nice story, but how do we want the engagement to be? So I have 2 charts here. You can see one that is a little more open-ended, where they can see endless possibilities, which is pretty amazing and honestly probably true to life, but a humongous task for any instructional designer to do. I happen to prefer the image down below, which gives the learner some choice, but then redirects them, at least in a linear format, back to where you want them to do, gives them choice, redirects them, so on and so forth. The next thing I think about is the relevance of the choices. So as you can see on the right-hand side here, I have one choice among 3 that is throw coffee at the computer. Well, that's probably not a relevant choice. Hopefully not something that you're going to encourage or expect your employees to do. So you want to make sure that probably things like that are not in there. Next thing is thinking about the number of choices. As I think about my personal life, I spend more time with my family often thinking about what I'm going to watch than actually watching. And that is not the experience we want for our learners. We want our learners to be able to dive in. We want them to be experiencing stuff. We want them to make choices. And we don't want them to feel like they are a deer in headlights in trying to do that. Next thing is the realism of the voice of the characters or the scenario that they're engaging with. You want to make sure that whatever the other characters are saying are going to feel absolutely authentic and appropriate for your environment. As it pertains to feedback, you want to make sure the feedback's useful. This big image that says wrong, not terribly useful. You want to make sure that it's delivered in the same way that it would be delivered in a real environment. Someone would probably not say wrong. They would probably say, actually, I'd rather you do this, or this really bothered me because of this. So you want to think about that. Next thing is thinking about visuals. And this is, we're gonna move over to Nick on visuals, because I think that's where some of the magic starts to happen within video and animation creation in Powtoon. So Nick, why don't you take over if you mind?
Sure. Great. Thank you so much, Stephen. I think all of this is, on the one hand, intuitive, right? But we're really kind of spelling out here, what are these elements, structure of a story? How do we react to it? How do we amp up that engagement by putting it into a more interactive interface, by making some stakes there, making it possible to lose, right? How do we tell that story powerfully? But also, what are the visual cues that you can use when you're creating videos to help carry some of that weight of the story, right? And I want to start with characters, because the reason why stories are so powerful is because we follow characters through. Characters are people encountering challenges, changing and growing, and that's how we live our lives. So that's how we also can assimilate information and identify with the characters in the story. They can help tell the story to us. So it's important when you're creating your videos to think carefully about the characters that you're choosing. Do you want a character that's perhaps less literal and more of like an icon, So for instance, like this character we have on the left who doesn't have facial features or a realistic skin tone, right? Because we don't want people to get bogged down in that, perhaps in this situation. Or maybe you've got a video, a story you're telling where you need the characters to be a little bit larger than life. You want them to be really cartoony for the sake of making a point beyond the character themselves. Then you would want to consider a character that's more like this one we have in the middle there. Or sometimes you want something very realistic that fits, of course, the animation style that you're using, but can connect with your audience directly. finally, if those don't work for you, of course, you can always create a character. And that's so powerful, especially when you're talking about diversity and inclusion, if you're talking about connecting with audiences in different locations, among different cultures, men, women, people in, all over the world, you'll want to be able to fine tune that character so it truly connects with your audience. Next slide, please. The other thing to think about, of course, is the setting and how you're presenting the setting. Stories take place in locations and go from place to place. And so you'll need to be able to describe that visually in the video that you're doing. And the beautiful thing about that is you don't need to write it out. You don't need to explain it. A voiceover doesn't have to come in and take up time saying, we entered the office and saw one chair by the desk. You can simply show it, which is great. And there's all sorts of options, something that's, a very simple kind of animation style, something that's a little more stylized. You may want to use live action video or images, stock footage, or things like that, like we see on the lower left. Or you can even use real life images from your organization. For instance, right there, that's our kitchen in the Powtoon office and our Tel Aviv office. And so sometimes I'm using that. For instance, we had something about the new COVID rules about in the kitchen and what you need to do, where you need to wear a mask and all of that. We could put that right there on the real life background that is our offices, so that folks who haven't been into the office in a week or two or have been working remotely can get that bit of connection to that company culture. And it also is just a direct, very literal connection point to your office, to your setting as an organization. Next slide, please. And of course, the great thing about using video and creating videos yourself is you have the ability to iterate and innovate, right? If you've created a video, a series of videos to tell a story, right? You can put those together. If you're working with a production company, that might take some time. You might have a filming day or two. There may be some edits and some backs and forth and all of that. But if you're creating them yourself on a platform, for instance, like Powtoon, where you can make edits very easily, where you can duplicate and change items to give it a different sense or tone, depending on what you're using the video for or what feedback you're getting from users or people in your organization, then you can very quickly iterate and improve your video content to tell a more powerful story. Here we've got a couple of examples of just how you can take the one concept and one short component from a branching path game, and you can show that with animation, you could show that with whiteboard, you could show that with live action video. And we're gonna take a look at these examples, and then we're gonna actually dive in. I'm gonna show you how fast you can put one of these together. So let's watch that first one on the upper left.
Hi, yes, I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you, but I really don't have time to talk. If you leave your card, I'll get back to you. Hi, yes, I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you, but I really don't have time to talk. If you leave your card, I'll get back to you.
And down here.
Hi, yes, I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you, but I really don't have time to talk. If you leave your card, I'll get back to you.
So you can see, even with whiteboard, you can even add sound effects to kind of like emphasize those things that the learner needs to pay attention to. For context, this video comes from a game where you'd be training someone to work with doctors' offices to try and sell medications or other services or items to them, right? The salesperson, the person being trained here, their objective is to get past our gatekeeper, Rachel, to talk to the decision maker. And so you'll need to, all of those sort of little things, the frustration in her tone, you're going to need to show those things visually. So if it's okay, I'm going to take over our presentation. And
Nick, while you're doing that, I just wanted to throw out there, you'll note, just through the great example we saw there, and Nick's going to show us how easy this is to put this together. When you're taking the time, going back to that hero's journey and those 12 concepts, look at Rachel here. She may be one of the obstacles. So that's a good one maybe to animate. in a video. The other is maybe your champion or your hero, right? Who's like the Rocky character when you're in your story. If we're talking about healthcare, maybe it's maybe it's pharma, and pharma's trying to sell into these doctors' offices and hospitals. So that's your hero. You want him to be successful. We're training all these pharma folks out there in the world, on the sales team globally. You can introduce that guy or that woman as a single character, as a cutout image. That's pretty easy, as long as you got your story laid out. And then as you're moving through, now we introduce Rachel, and she's an obstacle. How do we overcome that? So you don't have to animate everybody, but even if you decided to, you could, using a tool like Powtoon, because it's so easy to do that. It takes a little extra time, obviously, but you don't have to be a graphic artist or whatnot to make that look really nice. And
exactly, so true. And just if folks can see my screen, this is at the empty Powtoon studio, a blank project here. And the first thing I'm going to do, because I have the audio from our video clip there, I'm going to upload that as a voiceover track. So I'm going to go to sound, and I'm going to go to add voiceover. I can upload you can drag a file onto there. You can upload from a folder. And sorry, just, of course, that's right over that. There we go. Open. So now we've got, I'm going to apply it to the entire video. You have the option to apply a sound, for instance, a sound effect, or for like bumper music or something like that, audio files to one slide only. But in this case, I want it for the entire video I'm working on. And we can see.
Hi. Yes, I'm Rachel.
So even though there's nothing visual there, the audio is here, and we can see our timeline at the bottom. If we want to see information about the voiceover here, I can see this with its file name. It's 11.25 seconds. We can just go ahead and make my slide 11 seconds to match that. Let's construct this medical office. A few ways to do this. It just so happens actually here in the scenes menu, we have a ton of these there's like templates for one slide in a video. And down here in industries, we have a number of, these are ones that come up a lot, sort of like high tech or engineering, construction, and medical scenarios. So actually in the example that we saw there, all I did was choose this scene in one click. Now this does, because this is designed to be 4 seconds in length, I'll just have to re-add my a little bit of time to make this the right length of time again. But now I've got this setting all here in one click. If I wanted to do this kind of thing, just from scratch, I could go to backgrounds. I'm going to hop down to locations. I'll take this background, and then I can go to props and medical and mix and match. We can bring this guy in. We can have our curtain there, and we can also have this guy here. And I believe there was also a clock on the wall, wasn't there? Clock. Oops. There we go. Clock. Now, just want to be careful that all this is entering at the beginning. So very, very quickly, you can mock that up. And if this were, now, for instance, this already exists in scenes, but if this were something that didn't exist and I've just spent those few minutes doing that, I don't want to redo that work. I can go back to my scenes library and see here, save current scene. In one click, I've now got, a 10-second slide with this background, with these items on the stage showing up when they show up. So I've got this together, and I can use this again in one click. Pardon me, just save current scene. Now I've got it here. So if I had a blank slide, all I'd need to do is click it once and everything is there. So that is a huge time saver for iterating and editing, or for instance, in a scene like this where we may have in the paths of the game, many different variations, but the scene and setting is pretty much the same. I may only need to change the character or the expression on the character, or to add another prop coming in to add visual emphasis to something that's happening. in the script, right? So it really does save a whole lot of time and is an excellent way to work that into your. I use it all the time, actually. If you see on my scenes here, clicked another one.
Nick, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Please do.
One of the things I also think you should touch upon is the edit bar down below, right? Because it's really unique from a lot of other editing tools. The fact that it is one bar, and I find it's much more user friendly as a result. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the timeline down here is currently we've only got things that are at the beginning of the slide and stay on the stage the whole time. So you can see we've got 4 items here, and they're all on the stage for the entire duration of the slide here. But this is a good moment to talk about characters. We have a ton of character families, but I'm going to go with one of our newest ones here, Cosmo. So here's our character. And again, you just find the character you like, 1 click. The only problem with this character, of course, is she's not really dressed appropriately for the office, at least not for a medical office. And the setting we want to create here, it's just not believable in this output. But that's an easy fix. We can edit the character. We can edit her clothing here. So I'm going to just find us, medical scrubs. We don't need that anymore. And you can actually also, I believe, it's a jacket. One thing I want to do before I move on to the pants, I just want to, you see this color that her shirt is, the 5F9 DF9. I'm just going to click this plus sign to add it to my colors here. Come on. I've already got it edited, but it's right there. And that way, in 1 click, when I move on to the pants, I've saved that color and the character's pants can match. We've got different shoes and accessories, of course, which, certain settings, especially for training about current guidelines and things like that. Having a mask is super helpful, but of course, glasses and hats and protective gear and all sorts of other items that might be appropriate depending on what you're creating. Of course, you can also upload logos. This is something that actually any of the clothing items that have these 3 blue dots that you see, you can upload an image. And I don't know if I have one handy here. Or logo. Plenty of things called logo. Here we go. Nick Corp, one of my fake companies. So if I've got the Nick Corp logo here, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger, save. And now she's got that on her clothing, or any of the clothing, actually. So I could ditch this, and we could include, for instance, she could be wearing, oops, not that one, my mistake. Some of them have it on the breast, some of them have it on the in the center. I'm not finding that one right now, but they are available. We're going to finish our character. Of course, you can see a preview in some of the different poses that are available. You can save them, title your character, and whenever you want to access that character again, then they're here in the My Characters section. I find this the most handy because I have a Nick character that I like to use in all sorts of settings and things like that, but that's a novelty. It may be appropriate. Perhaps there is, a real hero in your organization that you want to make an exact character of, and sometimes that's also really, really fun and an easy way to engage people in your company culture. Or you could have a character who's simply suited to the situation that you're creating. So either way, I'm just actually going to swap this character out. As I mentioned, there are many poses that the different characters have. This is really how you communicate the emotions of your characters. Those are all just kind of rendering on this character that we just created, but I have a backup. I'm going to swap for my character that already has all the poses rendered. That only takes a couple of minutes, so it's really just for the sake of our demonstration here. And now our task is to match our character's demeanor and actions to the soundtrack that we've uploaded. You guys could hear the audio through here, yes?
We cannot.
You cannot. I could not either, and I don't know why. Let's try that one more time. Okay. Sometimes you just need to give it a quick save and a quick refresh. Right. All right. Okay. So I realized what was wrong. Since I made those extra slides, of course, our voiceover begins at the beginning of the video, so it's available on the first slide. Let's go back to our first slide. Let's add our character, who I just copied and pasted onto here. And let's try this again. Let me know if you can or cannot hear this voiceover.
Hi. Yes, I'm Rachel.
Excellent. So as you can see, the hi is pretty good. Then she starts talking, and we need her demeanor to become kind of this gatekeeper demeanor pretty quickly. So I'm just gonna, I believe here, what the best way to do this, by the way, is we have our character selected. We can see down here on the timeline, there she is. And what we want to do is move to where the change in pose is going to be. We're going to remove the exit effect, so the character won't swoop out or do any of these other actions. And we're just going to copy. I'm using key commands here, like Control-C and Control-V to paste. I'm going to make sure my playhead is right where, at 3 seconds, right where the character's first pose ends. And I'm just going to remove the entry effect of my second iteration of the character. So this way, and as you can see, you can just kind of line them up. And I'm going to change the pose of my second character to...
You're gonna make her like more defensive now. Like,
first she's
let you through.
Yeah, I think I've got actually disagreeing. Where's my disagreeing? Here, it's disagreeing. No. Right.
Oh,
so
like, yeah, that's cool.
Hi. Yes, I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you.
Oh, we still have nice to meet you. Hold on. So this will be a little bit later. But what we can do is sort of, let's see what we've got with that. She can just be talking, just talking. There we go. So just kind of talking, not a lot of emotion in it. And
Hi. Yes, I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you, but I'm...
right about here is where we can put that disagreement. So again, I'm just copying and pasting. Now we've got our next pose. I'm going to make this disagreeing.
Hi. Yes, I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you, but I really don't have time to talk. If you...
All right, so we just want this to go to about there. Copy, paste. And, you know, this, again, once you've done this once, you simply need to adjust where those breaks are and adjust the pose. So once setting it up the first time takes a few extra minutes, but once you have that together, it's very easy to edit and iterate. So here she's saying, if you leave speaking again, we can bring her back to talking. And then right at the end, because she's got a second or so at the end.
And while Nick's doing this, I know that we're getting into the weeds here, but I think I think that one of the reasons I want, and we want you to see this, is it's a combination in my mind in not just thinking about what the story you're telling is, but how you're telling it, what it should look like, what the voice should be. I don't mean literally the voiceover, but you know, the tone of voice should be, and how you bring it to life. And you know, it takes, in my mind, a lot of trial and error to make sure that you get that right combination. And I love, you know, I'm seeing you know, chatter in the chat box talking about different products that do this. I think that there are a whole bunch of interesting products out there. I've enjoyed working with Powtoon. You know, obviously others came up in the chat box as well. And I think that a lot of them serve a really nice purpose. Powtoon seems to me to be a very easy tool, has been a very easy tool for me to use, and to bring my vision to life in really quick time frame. And
I think that really is, not everybody has a background in script writing or in these creative areas, or perhaps you do have a background in instructional design, but you don't necessarily, this sort of feeling of, well, I'm telling a story, what does that mean, can maybe perhaps be a little bit intimidating. The technical skills required to get started and get started fast on a platform like Powtoon are almost nothing. If you can drag things and play around, there's a bit of a learning curve, an afternoon, to really get used to what you need to do. And every time you use it, you get a little bit more efficient and a little bit faster about it. And of course, every one of these platforms is a little bit different. But there's a reason why I've stayed at Powtoon for as long as I have, because I really love this product and I get to use it to do my job, which I really enjoy, but also that it's effective. It would be great if it was fun for Nick, but that's not really the point. We at Powtoon are trying to achieve things together, and it can help us do that. And it's the same thing when you're creating learning experiences at your organization. Here's a tool combined with a way of engaging with the story that's choosing your own path and engaging with it, so you're really learning something and taking it with you along the way. That's really where the magic starts to happen. And you don't need a master's in film to do it. You don't need to have to hire a production crew to work 3 months on something. And the other benefit here is you don't need to have one big project you're doing in the year. You can have a number of small projects that have iterations and other goals to do. You can be testing things, and if something is really having amazing results for you, then that's something you can look to replicate and scale. And I think that those are all really, really important. And in fact, knowing how, it's being able to see and measure that impact is a really important thing too. And I think that's something else that technology is really making easier and easier today, to be able to put your tech stack together like this, to have Game Agency and Powtoon and eLearning Brothers, and for using these platforms and services together to achieve something that really brings your colleagues up that pyramid that Stephen showed us earlier, from just being familiar with a concept to being really able to take action on it, to apply it, to even create new initiatives based on that training.
Nick, I'm going to jump back into the slides if that's okay.
That's great. Let me stop sharing.
And Stephen, we definitely have a lot of questions, so let me know when you're ready.
I'm going to go quick. There's about 3 more slides I have. Specifically, one of the questions I just saw was asking about interactivity. And so this is where I think that you take something like Powtoon and you apply it into other platforms out there, and it plugs really nicely into a lot of platforms. The one obviously that we utilize most frequently is the Training Arcade, and I wanted to show you a few examples here. Obviously, you saw that branching dialogue where you can use video to really drive the story and have you interact with the character. We have our detective game, which is more about analysis and understanding different situations and different characters and different root causes and whatnot. You can build stuff there. We have our recall game, which is watch videos and answer particular questions about it. Obviously, just a standard trivia game, works quite well. And then I showed you how we layered into Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune, same thing, video to really bring that content to life further and be able to engage with it. The other thing that's, I think, really important to think about is, and this goes for both video as well as gameplay, is being able to analyze how people are engaging with your content. And I think that that's really critical, right? So just not only measuring the retention, but also thinking about the skills that people have developed and whether they're able to apply them. Certainly, one of the nice things is with video, you're able to track decision making. Where are people going? How are they branching with the video? And what does that tell you about them as individuals, about their tendencies, about their risk tolerance, etc.? What type of persona information does this give you? And because I think that's really valuable to think about your learner that way. Also, you can, once you're building this into gameplay and into a more interactive format, you can think about not only accuracy, but also the effectiveness of what they're learning in day-to-day performance. And you can coach them accordingly as well. So I wanted to summarize, and then we'll kind of get over into questions and answers. At the end of the day, I think that I'm a big believer that stories are critical if you're trying to connect with your learner. It really pulls out the emotion, it gives them something to relate to, and it gives them something to certainly translate what you're trying to teach them into day-to-day circumstances. I think it's important to start with your performance objective, because I think without knowing what that is, you're not going to be able to build a compelling narrative. And I think that your performance objective should drive what that narrative looks like. As you can see, stories can certainly be produced quite easily using video, animations, multiple styles. They also complement really nicely into gameplay, and I think the two are incredibly powerful. And why they're powerful is they drive more engagement, they drive more retention, and ultimately, we're talking about they come with a lot of rich data. And I think those insights that you can get, the analytics about not only what people know, but how they perform, is, I think, really important to really understand who your learner is. So we covered obviously two products here, Powtoon and the Training Arcade. As we discussed, there's lots of them out there, but I think that these two are really nice ones to play around with if you haven't, and I encourage you to do so. Along those lines, I wanted to bring your attention to a free trial that we have for the Training Arcade, as well as an ebook that eLearning Brothers, the game agency, and Powtoon put together that's focused on storytelling and how to use that to make your training more effective. So I'll stop there. We certainly can answer any questions. Hopefully that was a good starting point for folks.
Okay.
Nice work, teammates.
Yes, good work.
We do have a lot of questions, highly engaged audience. One thing that came up several times, and you don't have to show it, Nick, but if you can talk a little bit about diversity of your characters, gender, race, disabilities, and also whether you can upload your own characters. That came up several times.
Sure. So we do, first of all, those our three newest sets of characters, including Cosmo, the character that the collection that we edited a character from today. Those are all editable in our character builder. And I did show the clothing customization. I did not show, you can customize the face, you can customize the skin tone. We have male and female sort of base characters available there. We're also working on, they aren't available yet, but there will be more diverse body sizes as well coming in the future. This is still a very new feature that we're working to improve and build upon. So that is available. But in addition to that, we have our legacy character sets. Those, unfortunately, you can't edit those, but they have many of the poses that we saw that are available, and a number of them are with diverse clothing, cultural backgrounds, and we also have some characters, for instance, seeing impaired characters or characters who use a wheelchair and things like that. So those are available, and we're always adding more assets like that to the platform. Now, the question about uploading your own, you can upload any image file, PNG, JPEG, SVT. And so you can, in effect, upload a static character and use that character, use some of the other animation options there to move it around. It would not have the poses that are available with our characters. Those are programmed in to the base characters that you're editing there. So I hope that answers that question there.
Yes, thank you. There were also several questions about how Powtoon integrates with Captivate, Articulate Rise, Lectora. If you could just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So, I mean, my understanding is the way that most people are using it, they're directly exporting an MP4 file of their videos and then importing those into whichever of the either LMS, LXP, whatever software that you're using to present the content, if that makes sense. And you could also, not everything goes directly into one of those kinds of platforms. It may be that you have, for instance, a YouTube channel that internal for your organization or something like that. You may want to be creating videos that are not the course or the training itself, but are micro learning bursts or other supporting videos that you could put those directly onto either social platforms that you're using or to your YouTube channel. And you can also embed videos on any web page as well. So if you've got that capability, or if that's something that you need to do, then you can do that as well.
Okay, great. Also, several people are asking how you differ from Vyond, or they used to be known as Go Animate. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I know that we have an enterprise product that, in addition to the studio that everyone saw here today, there's additional security, license management, team management, sharing and designating of templates, brand management capabilities, and all of that are available. So first and foremost, we're more than just the studio to create the video. So there's that piece that differentiates it. My understanding also is that while we today looked at this animated style, you actually could use Powtoon for more than this, or whiteboard styles that we saw in the deck today. You can create live action videos. You can use this in presentation mode for slide decks or for virtual events. We have a screen recording Google Chrome plugin called Powtoon Capture, which is also hugely valuable in terms of creating video, either record your screen, to record your camera, to record both of them together. So sort of putting all of those together gives you a platform that allows you to create video that's right for more audiences. It allows you to create videos that serve more purposes, and allows you to create more than just videos as well.
Okay, great. A couple people are asking if the characters can be exported to Captivate, not as a video.
I'm not certain, but my sense is that's not available now. If that were something that people were demanding, we could definitely bring that to our product team and see if it's something that's coming. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of integrations, there's also an integration with MS Teams, which can be really valuable depending on if that's something that your organization is using as well. But there's tons more on our website about integrations. I definitely recommend people check that out. You also have the ability or the option when you're downloading that ebook that we're releasing here together. You can also opt for more information about our enterprise platform, and our experts can tell you more about the specifics of all the integrations.
Okay, terrific. We have one question from Christopher, and he says, you mentioned stakes and loss as part of the learner journey. This might be more for Rich Voss. How do you balance loss with incentive for experimentation and practice? For example, are you just sending learners back to a save point after poor choices, or is there a better option that preserves the gravity of the loss?
I love that question. There's so many ways to do that. You might have seen the learn and earn dynamic, where you have a goal to earn as many points or as many dollars as you can through the experience. And then if you don't get enough, then you're going back to the beginning. You're going to try again. Stephen, you got to weigh in on this too, because when you talk about this dynamic of really creating a sense of loss in an interactive gaming experience that hopefully includes video, so it really ratchets up the engagement, what are some other ways that we could, even some of the templates we have in the training arcade, the games that exist there's so many ways to do that.
Yeah, it's a fine balance when it comes to gaming. And we think about, you want to give that feedback. That's one of the things that gaming certainly can do quite well. And you want to make sure that you find a nice flow for the learner so that they feel like they're accomplishing things up front, and they feel a sense of success before maybe they have a challenge in which they feel defeated. And I think that, a really good game design, and quite honestly, an interactive experience design in my mind, is about making sure that you're not too easy and not too hard. If you're too hard, you're going to lose them very quickly. If you're too easy, you're going to lose them, due to boredom very quickly. You want to make sure that you have those ebbs and flows of success and failure. And you want to certainly make sure that, and this comes down to where the narrative is, you want to make sure that the narrative delivers that failure feedback in a meaningful yet acceptable way to the learner. And so we have a lot of games that we've built that are more on the custom side, and certainly utilizing scenarios as well, in particular, because it's so story driven, that accomplish that. And I think it's a fine balance. Always happy to talk about that offline, and certainly happy to share some examples as well.
It's a great question. Do a pilot, build your narrative, build a good story, add in video elements, add some gaming in there, and then do a pilot and see how people do, what kind of feedback you get. And also, I just got to put this plug in there too. If you're using the arcades platform from the game agency, now you can go head to head with people in your own organization. And that creates a real sense of competition. And I don't want to lose to the guy, next to me or whatnot, but that's easier than ever now. So anyway.
I also just want to throw in, this is a little tangential, but it comes up a lot when I'm speaking to people using Powtoon for learning, is that sometimes they've got some reluctance from management to do something that's a little more experimental, or to convert tons of training to video and things like that. One of the ways to get buy-in is to do one of those pilot projects, so that yes, you're getting feedback to know how to optimize and make this better when you're scaling it as a program, but you've also then got numbers and results to show your exec team to say, hey, this is actually going to help us achieve business goals. How do I know we tested it this way? So, even a small scale test to begin can be really, really valuable for creating a more modern learning culture at your organization. A little off topic, but.
Great. Chris asks, what's too long for a training video? 10 minutes? 30 minutes?
I have a point of view on that, Nick. I'm sure you do as well.
I do.
I'm sure all three of you, both of you do. I would just say that when I think of video, I think it needs to be done in micro bytes, and so that's one of the reasons I actually like utilizing it as part of courseware or part of games, because to me, 10 minutes or 30 minutes is you're going to lose your audience's attention too quickly. So I think breaking it up and providing in bytes that are digestible is critical.
Yeah, it is a passive learning modality. You think about it that way. It's not active. It's not engaging. I shouldn't say it's not engaging, because it is. It's not interactive. Some video options can make video interactive, and actually some of the scenarios game that we saw earlier from Stephen does make an interactive video experience. But yeah, I agree, because it's a passive learning modality. You want to be careful with just the talking head. I do agree. I saw a comment here. I think, Christopher, 7 to 10 minutes, maybe max up to 7 minutes. I think that feels right to me too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've my experience, it really depends on how you're using it. Shorter often is better, almost always is better, especially if you think about how we're consuming video outside of work. For instance, for seeing video come through on a feed, you might have 3 to 15 seconds to really make some kind of impact, right? But when we're talking about training videos, I find that there's sort of a break at like 90 seconds, sort of with a minute to 90 seconds is a valuable unit. And then someone else mentioned kind of 5 to 7 minutes. I find that's, sometimes in the 3 to 4-ish, there's a bit of a breaking point for attention. And sometimes also then at that 5 and 7. So those are sort of like, it depends. And I would experiment and see what works given the material and given your audience, because there isn't any one size fits all thing, but in general, shorter is better. If you've got something that needs to be 15 minutes, it can be 3-5 minute videos as well. And just also remember your audience. Think of your audience. Put yourself in your learner's shoes, not just for the sake of the learning, but also they've had a week where this went wrong and that went wrong, and maybe they needed to, you never know. The training and the videos you're creating for training need to land even on a bad day. And so shorter and more succinct, to the point, visually engaging and stimulating, and yes, add that interactive element. And then all of a sudden you're chaining 1 and 2 minute videos together, and they've spent a half an hour learning, but they haven't reached that fatigue point. We've all experienced it. You're watching a video and at some point you're like, I'm thinking about my groceries. What is this again? And the beauty of using video in gameplay like this is that you just eliminate that. You have to bring their attention back.
Awesome. We also have had a few questions about different scenes, and if different scenes are available for the videos. A few suggestions were veterinary scenes, additional healthcare scenes, manufacturing scenes.
Yeah, so we have a number that are pre-made, and then also a number of props in the prop library that work for many of those. Now, in terms of a veterinary, I'm not actually so sure how robust our animal library is, but you may also be able to achieve that with stock footage. Actually, one thing that's really important to mention is we have an integration with Storyblocks stock footage. So I'm not sure of the number available, but it is in the millions of royalty-free stock footage clips available. So you could string together a few there that may also fit as well. But as I mentioned, you can upload your own images. So if you have any sort of designs that have been created to fit that, you could upload those and put them in something similar to the medical setting. That's one way around that. But as I also said, we have a number of categories of scenes here, and the one I was mentioning was industries, which has sort of like high tech, like working in a tech office kind of scenes, has server rooms and other computer and technology related things, construction and building, and medical are available currently there. And we're adding new sets to this all the time. Every month we have a new content release as well. So there's always more props and shapes and characters and other things being added.
Okay, great. We also have people wondering about, actually, you know what? Let me go to this one. This one's interesting. This one's kind of more for Stephen and Rich. What strategy would be more effective, having one story and incorporating it throughout the training, or having different stories for different topics within the same training?
I'll say that I think both can be effective. One of the things that I think the continuity of tracking a character or a set of characters, for a longer period of time and thinking about the different situations that they go in can be done quite well. We've done some really interesting stuff like that across a variety of trainings. I can think of anywhere from management training to patient care to change management. So we've done that there. But I also like the idea of the latter, which is thinking about looking at a whole variety of characters and scenarios. And what I like about that is that provides for maybe a little more diversity and thinking about different people who are experiencing different situations and really showcasing a much broader workforce. So I think they both have value. I think it depends on what you're trying to train. And I think that they both can be done, used quite effectively.
Agreed. Think of your story. If you're using multiple scenarios, it's going to take more time. Maybe break them up into micro learning, but they follow a similar theme. I really love that.
Okay. Let's see. A couple people have been asking about Powtoon. It's in the cloud.
Correct.
It can be used in a browser. Correct. Or is there a desktop client?
It's a SaaS product. It's available through web access through any web browser.
Okay, great. Can a branching storyline be created in Powtoon?
Well, so this is sort of the beauty of putting your tech stack together. You can create those individual elements here and then over with the training arcade, the game agency, you can put those pieces together into that branching story or with whatever other tool that you're using. So that's the way that that is best to use it for right now, as far as I understand.
And also, does Powtoon support subtitles?
Yes, actually, that's another big differentiator between the individual product and the enterprise product, because that comes with that directly. When you're exporting your MP4, you can also export a captions file and use that wherever you need to use it.
Okay, great. How effective is Storyboard that is compared to Powtoon or Vyond? I know we talked about Vyond, but not familiar with Storyboard.
I'm not either, although it is definitely, certainly storyboarding is a process I would recommend anybody go through when they're creating a video, and that's simply thinking through those visuals scene by scene. And there's lots of different ways to do that. I may be misunderstanding the question. I apologize in advance if that's the case. But in general, one of the things I really love about those scenes is that even if the timing's not right, I can click through and find sort of the scenarios or the settings or the basic visual story that I'm trying to put together and put them in order, and then go back and adjust the timing and add characters and sort of those expressions and all those sorts of things. So storyboarding, in other words, putting down the visuals ahead of actually sitting down to stitch everything together is a super important part of the process in video making. And I think that maybe they were speaking about a specific product that uses the act of storyboarding to put together your videos. Perhaps I'm not exactly sure, reading the tea leaves, but in any case, I certainly think that you can use Powtoon to storyboard. You can use whatever other tools you're using to create that sort of visual brief for what you want the final visual story to be, and it's a very powerful tool in your process.
And then along with those subtitles that you mentioned, do you have a translation tool for other languages?
Yes, there's definitely, I'm not totally sure exactly of the exact functionality, but I do know that it exists. It's basically when you create a video and then you have the ability to upload a translation so that all of the text will all appear in the same places, but will be then translated for that version. So yeah, that functionality does exist on the enterprise platform.
And also, Mike wants to know if there are updated project examples of people have done in Powtoon on your website.
Yeah, there's tons of examples on our website. I would also recommend people take a look at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Powtoon. Tons of examples of videos people have made there for learning, but also for internal communications, for HR, for marketing, for education, all sorts of different examples of what people have achieved. There's actually very recently a blog post that we published. We had our 100 millionth Powtoon created at the beginning of this year, and so we were celebrating that. And we asked people, send us your best. One of the Powtoons that came our way was a recreation of Squid Games put into, I believe it was in Articulate as one of the challenges in Squid Games.
I gotta go check that out.
Really, really cool. Powtoon.com/blog, and you'll find that on there. Inspiring examples of videos.
I don't know how much time do we have, Stephanie? Because we do have a few more.
We are actually over time. So I think the rest of them, if we could reach out to you guys offline, send you an email, try to find you the answers for these, because our wonderful presenters, we don't want to keep them here all day. I mean, we would if we could, but.
I'm impressed. Several hundred people hanging out after time.
Thank you, guys.
So we will definitely follow up with an email with a link to the recording and a link to the ebook, and also that scenarios game that we showed a little bit of, so you can play that on your own time. And I think that's what most people were asking for.
Yes.
And certainly feel free to reach out to Nick or Rich or myself with any specific questions that you'd like us to answer. Happy to jump in. This is the fun stuff, and really appreciate everyone sticking around and participating, and for coming overall. So thank you.
Agreed. Here. Thank you, everybody, for
Thanks, everybody.
joining. Thanks for having me, Stephen and everybody. And, good luck with your games, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll be sending that recording and those tips out that Jen mentioned. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.